The gun was empty, but he did not know that yet. The girl held a kitchen knife with both hands and stood between the stranger and her mother. She was 11 years old. Behind her, a boy buried his face in a dog's neck and would not look up. The woman on the floor had a revolver aimed at the man's chest. Her hand was bleeding through the bandage. Her lips were blue. And the one creature that had never disobeyed him in 8 years, was wrapped around her children and refused to move. 6 weeks ago, she had been someone else. Someone with a name that mattered, a house with locks on the doors, a future that looked like safety, even if it tasted like fear. 6 weeks ago, Kate Brennan still believed that love could be earned through silence, that survival meant swallowing everything that wanted to scream. But to understand why Kate Brennan was pointing an empty gun at Jesse Thornton on a December night in 1876, you need to know where the story really began. Not with the gun, not with the cabin, with a howl. The howl woke him, not a bark. Boone never howled. 8 years Jesse Thornton had owned that dog, and not once had the animal made a sound like this. Low, long, rising through the walls of the ranch house like something pulled out of the ground, like a wolf calling to the moon, like grief given voice. Jesse was off the chair before he thought about it. The bridle he had been working on hit the floor. He grabbed his coat, his hat, the Winchester, and kicked the front door open into a wall of white. December in Wyoming territory, snow driving sideways, wind so cold it burned his lungs on the first breath. Boone was gone. The barn door was open, tracks already half filled, heading north toward the pines. Jesse called once. Nothing. Just that howl again, farther now, pulling away from him like a rope going taut. 8 years. That dog never broke command, not when a grizzly stood up 30 yards from the herd, not when lightning split the barn roof and the horses went out of their minds. Jesse had once watched Boone hold a rattlesnake at bay for 40 minutes without moving a muscle, just standing there growling until Jesse could get a clean shot. That dog did not run from things, and he did not run toward things without reason. Jesse saddled his mare in the dark and rode into the storm. The wind tried to tear him from the saddle. Snow came at him, horizontal, stinging his face like thrown sand. He could barely see Bonnie's ears, much less the trail. But Boone's tracks were there, just barely filling in, even as Jesse followed them. North, always north, toward the old trapper's cabin that had been abandoned since before Jesse bought the land. 3 years ago, Jesse had waited at a train depot for a woman he had never met, a mail-order bride named Sarah. They had exchanged letters for 4 months. Her handwriting was careful, looping the words of someone who chose them with precision. She wrote about the garden she wanted to plant, the curtains she would make, the quiet life she imagined far from the noise of Philadelphia. Jesse had stood on that platform with his hat in his hands and his heart doing things he did not entirely trust. Hoping. That was the word. He had been hoping. The telegram came an hour before her train was due. Wagon accident, blizzard on the pass, woman deceased. He never even saw her face. For 3 years, Jesse told himself it was not his fault. She had taken an earlier train without telling him. She had been caught in weather he could not have predicted. He had done everything right. He had waited exactly where they agreed. But late at night, when the wind howled and sleep would not come, Jesse thought about the other truth, the one he did not say out loud. He had been relieved. Relieved that he would not have to marry a stranger. Relieved that he could stay alone the way he had been since his brother Daniel died at Shiloh with his guts torn open and his blood soaking into Jesse's shirt. Sarah died because Jesse had not cared enough to check on her, to ride out early, to make sure she was safe. He had lived with that for 3 years, and he would live with it for the rest of his life. The howl came again, closer now. Jesse urged Bonnie forward. The cabin appeared out of the white like a ghost materializing, half buried in snow, door hanging crooked on its hinges. And there, flat on his belly in front of that door, was Boone, whining, pawing at the wood. Jesse dismounted, drew the Winchester, pushed the door open with his boot. The woman had the revolver up before the door finished swinging. "Don't come closer." She was sitting against the back wall, auburn hair loose and tangled, hanging across a face that was white with cold. Not pale, white, the kind of color that meant she was running out of time. Her left hand was wrapped in a bloody cloth, the knot half tied. Her right hand held the gun steady enough to kill him. Jesse raised both hands. Easy, I'm not here to hurt anyone. His eyes found them. 3 children in the corner behind her. The oldest girl standing with a kitchen knife gripped in both fists, feet planted, jaw locked. She had her mother's auburn hair, her mother's jaw and eyes that had no business being that hard in a face that young. Behind the girl, a smaller one, 6 or 7, pressed flat against the wall. Not crying, her eyes were wide open, dry, watching Jesse the way a rabbit watches a hawk. And the littlest one, a boy, maybe 5, curled into a ball on the floor, with his coat pulled over his head, shaking. Jesse's chest went tight. "Ma'am, I'm going to put this rifle on the ground. You're going to watch me do it. My name is Jesse Thornton. My ranch is a quarter-mile south. That's my dog outside your door." He laid the Winchester on the floor. Slow, loud enough for her to hear the wood. "I'm unbuckling my pistol now." I said leave. Your fire's been dead for hours. Your children were shaking. Your hand is still bleeding through that wrap. And it's going to be 20 below before midnight. He set the gun belt next to the rifle and stepped back. "I leave you here. You don't make it to sunrise. You know that." She knew it. He could see the knowing in her face, in the way her jaw worked, in the way her eyes cut to the children and back to him. She was doing math, the kind of math that has no good answers. "Abia," she said without looking away from Jesse. "How is Rose?" The older girl glanced down. "She's cold, Mama, real cold. And Tommy won't stop shaking." The woman's throat moved, one hard swallow. The revolver dropped 2 inches. Boone pushed past Jesse's legs. The dog crossed the cabin and went straight to the boy on the floor. Not to the woman, not to the girls, to the smallest one, the one who was shaking worst. Boone lay down beside him and pressed his body along the child's back. Warm fur against a thin coat. The boy froze. Then one small hand crept out from under the coat and grabbed a fistful of Boone's fur. The shaking slowed. The younger girl whispered, "Mama, the dog is warm." "I see him, Rose." "Can I touch him?" "Stay where you are." Rose did not stay where she was. She crawled forward on her hands and knees and pressed herself against Boone's other side, burying her face in his neck. Boone did not move. He lay there like he had been waiting for these children his whole life. Jesse watched the woman watch her children wrap themselves around his dog. Something cracked in her face. Just a fracture. Just enough to show what was underneath the steel. She lowered the revolver to her lap. "The fire," she said. "Build the fire." Jesse moved to the hearth. Dead ashes. A few scraps of charred wood. He went outside, broke branches from the nearest pine strip bark for kindling, and had flames up in 4 minutes. Heat pushed back into the cabin like a living thing. "I need to look at your hand," he said. "No, that bleeding hasn't stopped. I know what happens in this cold. I was a teacher, not an idiot. I know about frostbite and I know about infection. And I know that if I take this bandage off right now, I'll start bleeding again, and I won't be able to hold this gun. That gun's empty." The silence hit the room like a hand slamming a table. The older girl, Abby, stared at her mother. The woman's face did not change, but her knuckles went white around the grip. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Since you cocked it the second time. The cylinder didn't rotate right. Either it's jammed or there's nothing in it. And the way you've been holding it tells me you know there's nothing in it." Silence. "And you still put your guns down." "You needed me to." She stared at him for a long time. The fire crackled. Rose murmured something to Boone. Tommy had not moved, but his shaking had stopped. "Eleanor Sullivan," the woman said. "Ma'am, that's my name. Eleanor Sullivan. If you're going to save my life, you should at least know whose life you're saving." "Miss Sullivan." "Don't call me Mrs. I don't carry his name. Not anymore." Jesse filed that away. He did not push it. "Eleanor, will you let me see your hand?" She unwrapped the cloth. The cut ran deep across her palm, base of the thumb to the wrist. She had started stitching it herself. 2 sutures and uneven, the needle still lying on the floor with bloody thread. She had run out of strength or run out of nerve. Jesse guessed it was strength because this woman did not look like someone who ran out of nerve. "Wagon tongue," she said before he asked. "The axle snapped in the storm. Metal edge caught me when I grabbed for it." "Where's the wagon?" "A mile south, maybe more." I unhitched the horse, put the children on, tried to ride. Horse threw us in a drift and bolted. You walked. I carried Tommy. Abby walked. I held Rose's hand. We found this cabin before dark. She said it like she was reading a list. No emotion, no drama. Just facts delivered in the flat voice of someone who could not afford to feel what had happened to her until she knew her children would survive it. How long? Jesse asked. Since yesterday afternoon. Over 20 hours. 3 children. No fire. Bleeding hand. Wyoming blizzard. Jesse reached for the needle on the floor. He picked it up and looked at her. I've stitched horses' cattle in my own leg once when a fence wire caught me. I'm not gentle and I'm not pretty, but I can close that wound. Do it. He stitched her hand by firelight. She did not flinch. She did not make a sound. She watched his hands the entire time. And Jesse understood she was not watching the stitching. She was watching to see if his hands would do anything other than what they were supposed to do. He tied off the last suture and sat back. Abby, Eleanor said. Yes, Mama. Put the knife down, sweetheart. Abby looked at the kitchen knife in her hands. She looked at Jesse. She set the knife on the floor beside her knee. Not far, close enough to grab. Jesse said nothing about that. If the girl needed the knife within reach, the knife stayed within reach. My ranch is a quarter-mile south, he said. Stone house, wood stove, food, blankets. I can get all of you there in 15 minutes. And then what? And then you take the house. I sleep in the barn. Why, yeah, because it's my barn and you're not sleeping in it. That's not what I'm asking. I know what you're asking, and I don't have an answer that'll satisfy you. I'm a stranger. You've got no reason to trust me and every reason not to. All I can tell you is that Dog has never lain down with a stranger in his life. And right now, your son is using him as a pillow. Eleanor looked at Tommy. The boy was asleep, both arms around Boone's neck, face buried in the fur, breathing slow and steady for the first time since Jesse had walked in. Mama, Abby's voice. Quiet, careful. Nobody followed us here, right? Jesse caught it. The way Eleanor's body went rigid for half a second. The way her eyes snapped to the cabin door. Not checking for the storm, checking for something else. Nobody followed us, baby, Eleanor said. But her hand moved back to the empty revolver in her lap. Jesse did not ask, not now. I'll carry Tommy, he said. You ride my horse with the girls. Boone will lead us. I can carry my own son. You've got one working hand, and you haven't slept in 30 hours. You carry Tommy through those drifts, and you'll both go down. Let me take him. I'll keep him against my chest. He won't even wake up. Eleanor's jaw tightened. She looked at Jesse's hands. Big hands, rough from 8 years of fence posts and saddle leather. Hands that could hurt a child without trying. He saw her looking. He knew what she was calculating. I held my brother when he died, Jesse said. He did not plan to say it. It came out like a rock dislodged from a hillside. He was 16, Shiloh, 1862. He bled out in my arms calling for our mother. I held him for 2 hours after he was gone because I couldn't make myself let go. He stopped. His throat had closed up on him. He swallowed hard and pushed through it. I know how to hold someone small, Eleanor, and I know what it costs to let someone else do it. The cabin was quiet except for the fire and Boone's breathing. Tommy, Eleanor said softly. Tommy, honey, this man is going to carry you. Boone is coming too. Tommy did not open his eyes. He reached up with both arms the way a small child reaches in the dark. Jesse lifted him. The boy weighed nothing. Not nothing like a child who was small for his age. Nothing like a child who had not been fed enough. Jesse felt bone through the coat. Ribs he should not have been able to count. Something locked shut inside Jesse's chest. Cold, hard, permanent. He held the boy against him and walked out into the storm. Eleanor mounted his mare. Abby climbed up behind her arms around her mother's waist. Rose sat in front, tucked between Eleanor's arms and the saddle horn. Boone ran ahead, cutting through drifts, finding the path like the storm was something he could read. They moved through the white. Halfway to the ranch, Tommy stirred against Jesse's chest. The boy's hand came up and grabbed the collar of Jesse's coat, small fingers frozen at the tips holding on. Jesse pulled the boy tighter and bent his head over him to block the wind. He had not held anything this carefully since his brother. Mama, Rose said from the horse. Mama, the dog knows where he's going. Hush, Rose. But he does. He's taking us somewhere. I said hush. Abby spoke then quiet enough that the wind almost took it. It's all right, Mama. I think it's all right. Eleanor did not answer, but her hand moved from the reins to Abby's arm wrapped around her waist, and she squeezed once. Hard. The kind of squeeze that says, I'm sorry and I love you, and I'm trying all at the same time. The ranch house came out of the snow like something solid in a world that had gone to smoke. Stone walls, cedar roof, the chimney still breathing a thin line of heat where Jesse had banked the fire before he left. Inside, heat, light, the smell of coffee and wood smoke and the beef broth Jesse had made that morning. He set Tommy down by the fire. Boone was already there and the boy went to the dog without a word. Rose followed. Abby stayed next to her mother and watched Jesse the way a sentry watches a gate. Eleanor stood in the doorway. She looked at the room, the bookshelf, the handmade table, the rifle rack, the kitchen with its iron stove. A quilt folded on the chair that looked old enough to be someone's grandmother's work. You built this, she said. My father started it. I finished it. Her eyes moved across the joints where wall met wall. He taught you well. He taught me enough. She stepped inside but did not sit down. She positioned herself between the door and her children back to the wall eyes on both windows. Old habits. The habits of someone who had mapped every exit in every room she entered for a very long time. Jessie put water on the stove, found clean cloth for her, hand warmed the broth, poured it into cups, and set them on the floor, where Eleanor could reach them without moving away from her children. There's bread in the box, blankets in the trunk. Where will you be? The barn, wood stove out there keeps it warm enough. He picked up his coat. At the door he stopped. He did not turn around because what he was about to say was easier to say facing the dark. I'm going to ask you something, Eleanor. You don't have to answer tonight. You don't have to answer at all. But I need to ask. Silence. I'll ask. Who's coming? The silence behind him was thick enough to touch. What makes you think someone's coming? Your girl asked if anybody followed you. You checked that door 6 times in 20 minutes and not once because of the wind. And you've been running long enough that your boy is 10 pounds lighter than he should be. He heard her breathing change, heard Abby shift on the floor. His name is Richard Aldridge, Eleanor said. Her voice was different now. Stripped, the way a bone sounds when you scrape off the last of the meat. He is their father. He is a lawyer in Boston. He has money and friends in high places, and a court order signed by a judge that says these children are his property. Children aren't property. The law in Massachusetts says otherwise. A father's right to custody is absolute. A mother has none. I have no legal claim to my own children, Jesse. Nininoy, Boshai Chanjevi, not one. Is that why you ran? I ran because he broke Abby's arm when she spilled ink on his papers. She was 10 years old. He grabbed her and twisted until the bone snapped. And then he told the doctor she fell down the stairs. And the doctor believed him because Richard Aldridge is a respectable man. Jessie turned around. Abby was sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the fire. Her left arm. He could see it now, the way she held it slightly different from the right, slightly careful. He locked Tommy in a coal cellar for 4 hours because the boy cried at dinner. Eleanor continued. Her voice was steady, her eyes were not. Tommy was 3. When I pulled him out, he couldn't stop screaming. He didn't speak again for 2 months. Jessie gripped the door frame. The wood groaned under his hand. And Rose. Eleanor's voice dropped. He never touched Rose. Rose was his favorite. He used her against the other 2. If Abby misbehaved, Rose got dessert and Abby got nothing. If Tommy cried, Richard would hold Rose on a heel and tell her what a good girl she was while Tommy stood in the corner. That's its own kind of cruelty. Yes, it is, and Rose knows it. She knows what her father did with her love, and she is 7 years old, and she already understands that being the favorite is not the same as being safe. Jesse breathed through his nose, slow, controlled, the way he breathed when a horse was panicking and needed someone to stay calm. Eleanor stepped closer. I bought a wagon and went south because I heard there was a doctor in Elk Hollow who might help me. A woman named Agnes Whitmore. She knew my mother. I know Agnes. Is she real? Is she actually there? Because I have been trusting people for 6 weeks, and the last man who offered to help me stole half my money while I slept in his boarding house. Agnes Whitmore is the most real person in this territory. She'll skin me alive if she finds out I let you sleep in a cabin with no fire. Eleanor almost smiled, not quite, the ghost of a thing that had once been easy and was now the hardest work in the world. He hired someone, she said, a man named Silas Crane, a detective. He tracks people for money. Richard sent him after me with papers. Legal papers saying I kidnapped my own children. Did Crane follow you here? I don't know. I lost him in Cheyenne, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of anything anymore. Jesse put his hat on. He stepped onto the porch and looked out at the snow, falling thick and silent across his land. Then he looked back at her. Eleanor, I don't know much about lawyers or courts or legal papers from Boston, but I know this valley. I know every ranch and every trail and every man within 20 miles. And I know that anyone who comes onto my land to take children from their mother is going to have to come through me first. You don't know what he's capable of. No, ma'am, but I know what I'm capable of, and I haven't found the edge of it yet. He closed the door. The bolt slid shut on the inside. Her side. Her choice. Jesse crossed the yard through the storm and pushed into the barn. He lit the stove. He lay down in the hay with his coat over him and his boots still on and stared at the ceiling while the wind tried to tear the world apart outside. He thought about a boy who weighed nothing, a girl who held a knife like she knew she might have to use it, a woman who walked through a blizzard with a bleeding hand and 3 children and an empty gun and never once stopped moving forward. And he thought about a man in Boston who broke a 10-year-old's arm and called it discipline. Jesse's hands curled into fists in the hay, his jaw locked. His brother's face came to him the way it always did when the anger got too big. Daniel at 16, blood in his mouth, asking Jesse to tell their mother something kind. You'd have liked her, Danny, Jesse whispered. You'd have stood right where I'm standing. He closed his eyes. Sleep did not come. It never came easy, but the wind was familiar and the dark was his. And somewhere in the house, Boone was lying between 3 children, keeping watch the way only a dog can, with a faith that does not ask questions and a loyalty that does not count the cost. Morning came cold and clear. The storm had passed in the night, leaving the world buried under 2 feet of fresh snow. Jesse woke to silence, the kind of silence that follows a blizzard, like the earth holding its breath. He fed the horses, milked the goats, chopped wood, and all the while he thought about the woman in his house and the questions she had not answered. Where were you going to see someone, she had said. In Elk Hollow, Jesse had lived in this valley for 8 years. He knew every family, every homestead, every name worth knowing. And he did not know anyone who would be expecting a woman named Eleanor Sullivan. The sound of chopping brought Eleanor to the window. She had been awake since first light, watching the children sleep. Abby curled into her right side. Rose sprawled across her lap. Tommy, 3 feet away, still wrapped around Boone, the dog's chin resting on the boy's shoulder. Gray light was coming through the window now. The storm had stopped. The chopping came again, steady, rhythmic, axe on wood. Eleanor's hand went to the revolver on the floor beside her before she remembered it was empty. She eased Abby off her arm, moved Rose to the blanket and stood. Her left hand throbbed. The stitches pulled when she flexed her fingers, but they held. Whoever this Jesse Thornton was, he could sew. She went to the window. He was in the yard splitting firewood. No coat. Sleeves rolled to his elbows despite the cold. His breath came out in white clouds. His arms moved with a kind of mechanical precision that told her he had done this 10,000 times. There was a stack of split logs beside him that was already knee-high. He had been out there a while. Eleanor watched him for a full minute. She watched the way he set each log on the block, the way his shoulders moved, the way he paused between swings to scan the tree line and the road. He was checking, the same way she checked. Not for weather, for people. The door opened behind her. She spun. Abby was standing there, the kitchen knife in her hand again. Mama, who is he? His name is Jesse Thornton. He owns this ranch. Are we safe here? Eleanor looked at her daughter, 11 years old, asking if they were safe the way other children asked what was for breakfast. A question she had been asking in one form or another since she was 8. Since the first night Richard came home drunk and the yelling started, and Abby learned to listen for footsteps, the way animals listen for predators. I don't know yet, baby, but we're warm and we're alive, and that's enough for right now. He stitched your hand. He did. Papa would never have done that. The word hit Eleanor in the chest like a stone. Papa. Abby still called him that sometimes, even now, even after everything. The word was a reflex, a ghost from a time when the children still believed their father was what fathers were supposed to be. No, Eleanor said. He wouldn't have. The front door opened and Jesse came in carrying an armload of split wood. He stopped when he saw them standing there. His eyes went to Abby's knife, then to Eleanor's face. He set the wood beside the stove without comment. Morning, coffee's on the porch. I made it before sunup. Might be strong enough to strip paint by now. I don't drink coffee, Abby said. Smart girl. Terrible habit. There's milk in the root cellar if you want it. Goat milk. I've got 2 goats out back who think they own the place. You have goats. Against my will, a neighbor gave them to me 3 years ago and they refused to leave. The brown one is named Jezebel, and she eats everything, including my shirts off the clothesline. Abby did not smile, but something in her face loosened by a fraction. She looked at her mother. Eleanor nodded. Abby put the knife down on the table. Not out of reach, just down, and went to find the root cellar. She's careful, Jesse said. She has reason to be. I know she does. I'm not judging Eleanor. I'm saying she's smart. Rose appeared from the back room with Boone at her heels. The girl had her hand buried in the dog's fur and was talking to him in a low, steady stream that sounded like she was explaining the entire history of the world. And then Mama said we had to leave very fast and we couldn't bring any toys. So I left my doll Elizabeth on the bed and I think about her every night because she's all alone in my room and nobody is talking to her. Boone walked beside her with his head tilted, listening with the grave attention of a creature who understood that being heard was sometimes more important than being answered. She's been talking to your dog for 10 minutes, Eleanor said. Boone's a good listener. She doesn't talk to people like that. Not anymore. She used to. Before. Jesse poured coffee into a tin cup and held it out to her. She took it. Their fingers did not touch. He had been careful about that. She noticed. I'm riding into town this morning, Jesse said. Elk Hollow is 6 miles south. I'll send word to Agnes Whitmore that you're here. She'll want to see you. I told you I don't know if she'll remember. She'll remember. Agnes Whitmore remembers every patient she ever treated, every woman she ever helped, and every man she ever threw out of her clinic for being drunk and useless. If your mother was her friend, she knows your name. Eleanor wrapped both hands around the cup. The warmth stung her stitches. She held on tighter. What will you tell people in town? The truth mostly. I found a woman and 3 children stranded in the storm, brought them to my ranch. She's staying until she's back on her feet. And when people ask why a single woman with 3 children ended up in a blizzard in the middle of Wyoming, people in Elk Hollow don't ask questions they don't want answered. Half the folks in this valley came here running from something. That's how the West works. You don't ask a man his past, and you don't ask a woman her reasons. That's a nice idea. It doesn't hold up when a detective with a court order shows up asking for me by name. Jesse set his cup down. If Silas Crane comes to Elk Hollow, he'll have to go through town first. And going through town means going past Hank Morrison's store, past the sheriff's office, past Agnes Whitmore's clinic, and past about 30 people who will know a stranger the second he rides in. He looked at her. This is not Boston, Eleanor. You can't disappear in a crowd here because there is no crowd. But that cuts both ways. Nobody sneaks in either. Eleanor stared into her coffee. The steam rose and faded. You talk like you've thought about this before. Protecting someone. I haven't. Then why are you so calm about it? Jesse picked up his hat from the table. Because panic doesn't fix things. I panicked once. At Shiloh. When the line broke and men were running and my brother was on the ground. I panicked and it cost me time. And time was all he had. He put the hat on. I don't panic anymore. I just move. He was at the door when Eleanor's voice stopped him. Jesse, he turned. Who were you supposed to meet at the depot 3 years ago? His face did not change, but something behind his eyes went very still. Her name was Sarah, he said. We were going to be married. I'm sorry. Don't be, I never met her. I don't even know what she looked like. Just her letters. But you waited for her. I did. And when she died that you blamed yourself. Jesse's hand tightened on the doorframe. I was supposed to meet her train. I didn't ride out early to check on her. I just waited, like an idiot, while she froze to death in a wagon on the pass. Eleanor set down her coffee. She walked across the room until she was 3 feet from him, close enough to see the lines around his eyes, far enough to keep the distance he seemed to need. You didn't kill her, Jesse. The storm did. Maybe, but I didn't save her either. You couldn't have known. No, but I could have cared enough to try. The silence stretched between them. Outside, Abby's voice drifted in from the root cellar, talking to the goats. Rose was singing something to Boone. Tommy was still asleep by the fire. That's why you're doing this, Eleanor said. For us, because you think we're your second chance. I don't think anything. I just know that when I carried your boy through that storm last night, he grabbed my coat and held on. And I thought this is what it feels like to hold someone small and have them live. He turned to go. Jesse, wait. He stopped. Who was I supposed to meet in Elk Hollow? Her voice was different now, quieter, like she was testing the weight of something before she picked it up. A man, she said. His name was Daniel Cooper. He advertised for a wife, I answered. We corresponded for 3 months. He said he had a ranch near Elk Hollow. Jesse went very still. Daniel Cooper. Yes, do you know him? The silence was answer enough. Ma'am, Jesse said slowly, there's no rancher named Daniel Cooper in Elk Hollow. There never has been. The color drained from Eleanor's face. That's not possible. We exchanged letters. He described his ranch, the valley. He sent me money for passage. How much money? $200. Jesse closed his eyes. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you've been had. Eleanor sat down hard in the nearest chair. Her good hand came up to cover her mouth. There was a man, Jesse continued. His voice was gentle now, the way you talk to someone who's just been kicked. Marcus Webb. He used the name Daniel Cooper a few times. Ran mail-order bride scams. Took money from women for travel expenses and then disappeared. He died 2 months ago. Drunk. Fell off his horse. So the letters. Probably wrote to a dozen women. Same promises, same ranch, same future. Eleanor's shoulders started to shake. Not crying, laughing, a sound that had nothing to do with joy. I trusted words on paper, she said. I bet my children's lives on a stranger's promise. On a man who didn't even exist. You were desperate. Desperate people take risks. Desperate. She looked up at him. Her eyes were dry. Hard. That what I am. That's what he made you. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the white expanse of nothing that surrounded them in every direction. I have no money, no wagon, no horse, no plan, and a man with a court order hunting me across half the country. She turned to face him. Why are you still standing here, Jesse? Why haven't you told me to leave? Because you've got nowhere to go. That's not your problem. Maybe not, but those children are warm and fed and sleeping for the first time in God knows how long. And I'm not about to throw them back into the cold because their mother made a mistake. I made a mistake that could get you killed. Richard Aldridge doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget. If he finds out you helped me, he'll come after you too. Let him come. You don't understand. I understand plenty. I understand that a man who breaks a little girl's arm and locks a boy in a cellar is not a man. He's a monster wearing a suit. And I've killed monsters before. Eleanor stared at him. You can stay, Jesse said. Long as you need, I'll sleep in the barn. You take the house. No debt. No obligation. Why? Because 3 years ago I was supposed to meet a woman at a train depot. Mail-order bride. Her name was Sarah. She died in a blizzard before I could meet her. I didn't ride out to check on her. I just waited, and she died alone. He looked at her. I'm not your second chance, Eleanor, but those kids are mine, and I'll take what I can get. Eleanor's eyes burned. She blinked, and the tears held. I'm not Eleanor Sullivan, she said. That's not my real name. I figured. My name is Kate Brennan. I'm still legally married to Richard Aldridge. I didn't divorce him. I stole my children in the middle of the night and ran. And if he catches me, the law will side with him. because the law always sides with the man who has money. Kate, the name sounded different in his mouth. Real. We stay, she said, but I earn my keep. I'm not charity. Never thought you were. And if Richard comes? When Richard comes, Jesse corrected. Not if. When. When he comes, you let me face him. This is my fight. No, ma'am. When he comes, it becomes everyone's fight. Because that's how it works out here. We take care of our own. I'm not yours. Jesse looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up his coat. Not yet, he said, but you're not his anymore either. And that's a start. He walked out into the morning. Kate stood at the window and watched him ride south toward town. Boone stayed in the house. Jesse did not call for him. He did not even look back. Kate closed her eyes and let the tears come. Silent. Hot. The kind of tears that come from a place so deep you did not know it existed until something cracks it open. Abby appeared beside her, took her hand, said nothing. Behind them, Rose was singing to Tommy, trying to wake him with a song about sunshine and gardens and all the things they did not have but maybe could someday if they were very lucky and very brave. And Kate Brennan, who had been Eleanor Sullivan, who had been Mrs. Richard Aldrich, who had been a woman with no name at all, held her daughter's hand and watched a stranger ride away to help people who were not his family. And for the first time in 10 years, she let herself hope. Jesse rode into Elk Hollow with his hat pulled low and his mind working through problems that had no clean solutions. A woman with a false name. 3 children running from a father with legal papers. A dead man's promises that had lured her halfway across the country. And somewhere maybe close, maybe not a detective, tracking her with the full weight of Massachusetts law behind him. The town came into view as the sun broke over the eastern ridge. 6 buildings clustered around a main street that turned to mud every spring and dust every summer. Hank Morrison's general store, the blacksmith, a boarding house run by a woman named Clarabelle Hoffman who knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves, the sheriff's office, and at the far end a small building with a hand-painted sign that read, A. Whitmore Physician. Jesse tied Bonnie outside Morrison's store and went in. Hank was behind the counter sorting nails into bins with the focused intensity of a man who believed that disorganized hardware was a sign of moral failing. He looked up when the bell rang. Jesse Thornton, twice in 1 week, must be the end times. Need some things, Hank. What kind of things? Flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, salt pork if you've got it. Hank set down his nails and pulled out his ledger. That's a lot of provisions for a man who lives alone. Maybe I'm planning for a hard winter. Winter's half over. Jesse said nothing. Hank wrote numbers in his book and did not ask again. That was the thing about Hank Morrison. He knew when to push and when to let silence do its work. Heard you had some excitement last night, Hank said. Storm like that, people get lost easy. Found bum folks in the old trapper's cabin, woman and 3 children. Brought them back to my place. Hank's pencil stopped moving. Woman alone with children. That's right. She got a name. Jesse hesitated, then decided that the truth or part of it was safer than a lie that could be unraveled later. Said her name was Eleanor Sullivan, widow. Wagon broke down in the storm. Horse bolted. They walked to the cabin. Where was she headed? Here, Elk Hollow. We don't get many visitors in December, Jesse. Especially not widows with 3 children traveling alone. She got family here. Said she was coming to see someone, a rancher, man named Daniel Cooper. The change in Hank's face was immediate. The careful neutrality dropped away, replaced by something that looked like pity. Ah, hell. You know the name. I know it, yeah, but Jesse, there's no Daniel Cooper in this valley. Never has been. I figured that, but I needed to be sure. Hank leaned on the counter. Marcus Webb. You remember him. Con man, drunk, died a couple months back. That's him. He ran schemes, like to prey on women looking for husbands out west. He'd place advertisements in eastern newspapers. Rancher seeking wife. Good land, honest work, future together. Women would write back. He'd write back as Daniel Cooper or John Smith or whatever name he was using that month. He'd ask for money, travel expenses, setting up the household, whatever he could squeeze out of them. And then, and then he'd disappear. Move on to the next town, next batch of letters. He probably had a dozen women on the hook at any given time. Jesse's jaw tightened. How much did he usually take them for? 100, 200, whatever they had. Most of them never made it out here. The ones who did, they'd show up looking for a ranch that didn't exist and a man who was never real in the first place. What happened to them? Some went back east, I guess, broken, humiliated. Some stayed, found work, married actual ranchers who weren't ghosts. Hank pulled out a box from under the counter. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to different names, all in Marcus Webb's handwriting. Sheriff found these when they cleared out Webb's room after he died. Gave them to me to burn. I kept a few. Thought maybe someday someone might come looking. He pulled out one letter and handed it to Jesse. Daniel Cooper had written about a stone house with a view of the mountains, about fertile land and clear water, about loneliness and hope, and the kind of future that made desperate women believe in second chances. Jesse folded the letter and gave it back. She gave him $200. Hank winced. That all she had? Probably. And now she's at your ranch with 3 children and nowhere else to go. That's about the size of it. Hank was quiet for a moment. Then he started pulling items off the shelves. Flour, sugar, coffee, more than Jesse had asked for. What are you doing, Hank? What's it look like I'm filling your order? I didn't ask for all that. Consider it a donation. Woman got swindled by a dead man. Least I can do is make sure her children eat this winter. Hank, don't argue with me, Jesse. I'm old and mean, and I'll charge you double just for spite. Jesse looked at the pile of supplies growing on the counter. Put it on my account. Like hell I will. This one's on the house. And if that woman needs work, you send her to Clarabelle. The boarding house always needs help, and Clarabelle pays fair. I'll tell her. Hank started wrapping the supplies in burlap. One more thing, Jesse. You said her name was Eleanor Sullivan. That's what she told me. But you don't believe her? Jesse did not answer. Hank tied off the last package and pushed it across the counter. People come west to forget who they were. I don't ask questions. Neither should you. If she's running from something, the only thing that matters is whether she's running towards something worse or something better. I know what she's running from, and it's worse. Hank met his eyes. Then you help her, and you don't look back, because out here the past only catches up if you let it. Jesse loaded the supplies onto Bonnie and walked down the street to the small building at the end. The sign out front read, said L. Whitmore Physician, in faded letters that had been repainted so many times the wood underneath was more paint than grain. He knocked. It's open. Agnes Whitmore was at her desk writing in a ledger. She was 60 years old with silver hair, pulled back in a bun, and eyes that had seen enough suffering to fill a dozen lifetimes. She looked up when Jesse entered. Mr. Thornton, you're bleeding or someone else is. Someone else, but not bleeding anymore. Sit down and talk faster. I've got a baby due this afternoon and I need to prepare. Jesse sat. He told her about the storm, the cabin, the woman with the bleeding hand, and the 3 children, the empty gun, the walk back to his ranch. He told her the woman's name was Eleanor Sullivan, even though he knew now it was Kate Brennan. Some truths were not his to share. He told her that the woman had mentioned Agnes by name, that her mother had known her. Agnes set down her pen. Margaret Sullivan. You remember her? I remember every woman who walked into my clinic with injuries she claimed came from falling downstairs. Margaret Sullivan came to me 6 times over the course of 2 years. Boston, 1845. She had a daughter. Kate, smart girl, quiet, watched everything. What happened to Margaret? She died of pneumonia in 1857, but the pneumonia found her because she'd been broken so many times there was nothing left to fight with. Agnes stood and began pulling supplies from her shelves. Bandages, salves, bottles of tincture. Where are they now, the woman and her children? My ranch. And where are you sleeping? The barn. Agnes almost smiled. You're a good man, Jesse Thornton. Foolish maybe, but good. She packed her medical bag with quick, efficient movements. I'll ride out this afternoon, check on them. But Jesse, I need to tell you something. If this woman is running from what I think she's running from, medical care isn't going to be enough. She's going to need legal help. And out here, that's hard to come by. She's got court papers against her, custody order from Massachusetts, says she kidnapped her own children. Agnes's face went hard. Is the father the one who hurt them? Yes. Can you prove it? The oldest girl has a broken arm that healed wrong. The boy doesn't speak. The woman's got scars. Then I'll document everything, every mark, every injury, every sign of trauma. And if it comes to a legal fight, we'll give them evidence that no honest judge can ignore. She closed her bag and looked at him. But you need to understand something. The law favors fathers, especially fathers with money and connections. This woman, whoever she is, she's fighting uphill against a system that was built to protect men like the one she's running from. Then we change the angle of the hill. Agnes picked up her coat. I'll be there by midday. You tell her I'm coming. And Jesse, one more thing. What? Thank you for not leaving them in that cabin. Jesse rode back to the ranch with the supplies and a weight in his chest that felt like a stone settling into place. When he crested the ridge and saw the house, smoke was rising from the chimney. A small figure was in the yard throwing scraps to the goats. Rose. She saw him coming and ran inside. By the time he dismounted, Kate was at the door. Is everything all right? Everything's fine. Brought supplies. He untied the packages from Bonnie's saddle and carried them inside. Abby was at the table teaching Tommy to write letters in the dust on the wooden surface. The boy was concentrating so hard, his tongue stuck out the side of his mouth. Boone was lying beside them watching. Jesse set the supplies on the counter. I talked to Hank Morrison in town. He confirmed what I told you this morning. Daniel Cooper doesn't exist. Never did. Kate's face did not change, but her hands tightened on the edge of the table. The man who used that name was Marcus Webb, con artist. He's been running mail-order bride scams for years. He died 2 months ago. So everything he wrote, everything he promised. Lies, all of it. Kate turned away. She walked to the window and stood there staring out at the white expanse of nothing. I should have known. I should have seen it. You saw what you needed to see. Hope. A way out. That's not a failing. It's stupidity. It's human. She turned to face him. Her eyes were dry, but there was something in them that looked like she was barely holding herself together. I gave him everything. $200. That was every penny I had saved. Every coin I hid from Richard. Every cent I stole from his desk when he was drunk and wouldn't notice. It took me 2 years to save that much, and I gave it to a ghost. Jesse started to speak, but she cut him off. I bet my children's lives on a promise from a dead man. And now we're here, in the middle of Wyoming in December. No money, no plan, no future. You've got shelter, you've got food, you've got time to figure out what comes next. Time, she laughed. It was not a happy sound. Time is what Richard is using to hunt me. Every day I stay in one place is another day he gets closer. Then we make sure he doesn't find you. How you going to hide us forever? Lie to everyone who asks questions. Eventually someone's going to talk. Someone's going to mention a woman with 3 children at Jesse Thornton's ranch. And when they do, Richard will know. Let him know. Kate stared at him. You don't mean that. I do, because hiding means you're still running, and I think you're tired of running. I'm tired of a lot of things. That doesn't mean I can stop. Jesse pulled out a chair and sat down. I need you to tell me the truth. Not the story you told last night, the real one. Because if I'm going to help you, I need to know what I'm up against. Kate looked at Abby. The girl was still teaching Tommy his letters, but her shoulders were tense, listening. Abby, take Tommy and Rose outside. Show them the goats. Mama? Now, sweetheart. Abby stood. She took Tommy's hand and called for Rose. The 3 of them went out, Boone trailing behind them. When the door closed, Kate sat down across from Jesse. My name is Kate Brennan, not Eleanor Sullivan. I was married to James Brennan. He was a good man. He worked in a factory in Boston. He died in an accident in 1872. I was left with 3 children and no money. How did you meet Richard Aldridge? He was a client at the school where I taught. A lawyer, wealthy, charming. He courted me for 6 months. I thought I was being practical. I needed security for my children. He needed a wife. When did it start? 6 months after the wedding, he came home drunk. I said something he didn't like. He hit me, once, hard enough to split my lip. The next morning he apologized, brought me flowers, said it would never happen again. But it did. Every few weeks, then every few days, then every night. He was careful, never where people could see, never in a way that would show at church or at his office. Jesse's hands clenched on the table. Abby's arm. She spilled ink on his legal papers. He grabbed her and twisted until I heard the bones snap. She was 10 years old. He told the doctor she fell down the stairs. The doctor, Thomas Marsh, he looked at me. I could see in his eyes that he knew. But he wrote accidental fall on the report and said nothing. And the boy, Tommy, Kate's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Richard came home angry one night. Some case he'd lost. Tommy was 3. He was crying at dinner. Normal child crying. Richard picked him up and locked him in the coal cellar. 4 hours. When I finally got him out, Tommy was screaming. He screamed for an hour and then went silent. He didn't speak for 2 months. What about Rose? Rose was his favorite. He never touched her, but he used her. If Abby or Tommy misbehaved, Rose got rewards. Extra dessert, new dresses. Richard would hold her on his lap and tell her what a good girl she was, while her brother and sister were punished. Jesse stood. He walked to the stove and gripped the edge with both hands. That's not love. That's torture. I know, and Rose knows. She's 7 years old and she already understands that her father's love was a weapon used against her family. So you ran. I planned for 6 weeks. I stole money. I packed bags and hid them. I found the advertisement for Daniel Cooper and I thought, this is it. This is the way out. A new name, a new state, a marriage that would make Richard's custody claim invalid. But Cooper was a lie. Everything was a lie, but I was desperate enough to believe it. Kate stood and faced him. 3 days after I bought the tickets, Richard found my packed bags. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. That night, he locked Tommy in the cellar again. And I knew if I didn't leave right then, he would kill one of them. Maybe not on purpose, maybe in a rage, but they would die. So you took them in the middle of the night. I woke them at 2 in the morning. I told them we were leaving. Abby asked where. I said away. That was all I had. Away. She wrapped her arms around herself. We took a train to Omaha. I met a woman there who taught me to shoot. She gave me $5 and the revolver. I bought 2 bullets. I practiced until I could hit a target. Then I sold 1 bullet for food and kept the other. The gun was empty when I found you. I used the last bullet 3 days ago. Fired it at a man in Cheyenne who tried to follow us. Missed him by a mile. But he ran. Jesse turned to face her. Richard filed legal papers saying you kidnapped the children. Yes, and he hired Silas Crane to find me, a detective. I've seen him twice. Once in Chicago, once in Cheyenne. He's good at what he does. You think he's still tracking you? I know he is. Men like Crane don't give up. Richard pays well. Then we prepare. Kate's eyes widen. Prepare for what? For when he comes, because he's coming, Kate. Men like Richard Aldridge don't let go of things they think they own, and he thinks he owns you. He has the law on his side. Maybe, but I've got this valley, and everyone in it. You can't ask people to fight my battle. I'm not asking. I'm telling you what's going to happen when a rich lawyer from Boston shows up with a court order trying to take children from a woman who walked through a blizzard to protect them. He stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that she could see he meant every word. People out here don't care about Massachusetts law. They care about right and wrong. And what Richard did to you and those children is wrong. So when he comes, he's not going to face you alone. He's going to face all of us. Kate's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back, but one escaped and ran down her cheek. Why would you do this for strangers? Jesse was quiet for a long moment. Then he took off his hat and turned it in his hands. 3 years ago, I was supposed to meet a woman at a train depot. Her name was Sarah. We were going to be married. I'd never met her, just letters. But I thought maybe this could work. Maybe I could have something like what my parents had before the war took everything. He set the hat on the table. The telegram came an hour before her train. Wagon accident. Blizzard. Woman deceased. I stood on that platform and I felt relief. Relief that I didn't have to marry a stranger. Relief that I could stay alone. That's not your fault. Maybe not, but I didn't ride out to check on her. I didn't go looking. I just waited like an idiot while she froze to death 20 miles away. And I've lived with that for 3 years. He looked at her. When I carried Tommy through the storm last night, he grabbed my coat and held on. And I thought, this is what it feels like to hold someone small and have them live. This is what I missed with Sarah. This is the second chance I don't deserve, but I'm taking anyway. Kate wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You're not responsible for saving me, Jesse. I know, but I'm responsible for what I do next. And I'm choosing to stand between you and the man who wants to hurt your children. That's my choice, not yours. The door opened. Abby stood there with Tommy and Rose behind her. Mama, the goats are eating Jesse's shirts. Kate laughed. It came out broken, half sob, but it was real. Then I guess we better go save them. The afternoon passed in a kind of strange domesticity that Kate had almost forgotten existed. Jesse showed Abby how to properly hold a knife for cutting vegetables. Not the kitchen knife she'd been gripping like a weapon. A paring knife, safe, useful. Rose talked to the goats and declared that Jezebel was misunderstood and just needed a friend. Tommy sat in the corner with Boone and did not speak, but his eyes followed Jesse everywhere. Watching, learning. Kate cooked. It had been weeks since she'd had a real kitchen. A stove that worked, ingredients that weren't stale. She made biscuits with flour that Hank Morrison had donated and gravy from the salt pork. It was simple food, but it was warm and there was enough. They ate at the table, all of them. Jesse sat at one end, Kate at the other, the children between them. It felt like something Kate had read about in books, but never quite believed existed. A family that sat down together without fear, without watching for mood changes and flinches, without calculating how to survive the next 5 minutes. After dinner, Jesse went to the barn. He said he had work to do, but Kate suspected it was more about giving them space. Time to be alone without a strange man watching. She put the children to bed in the loft. Abby took the outside edge position between her siblings and the ladder. Still on guard, still protecting. Rose fell asleep clutching a cloth she had folded into the shape of a doll. Not Elizabeth, but something. Tommy curled around Boone. The dog had followed them up the ladder and settled beside the boy like it was the most natural thing in the world. Kate sat with them until their breathing evened out. Then she climbed down and stood at the window looking out at the barn where a thin line of light showed through the cracks. She thought about Jesse in there, alone in his own barn, on his own property, because he'd given his house to people he didn't know. She thought about Sarah, the woman who died before Jesse could meet her, the ghost that had haunted him for 3 years. And she thought about Daniel Cooper, the man who never existed, the lie that had brought her here. Sometimes Kate realized you find what you're looking for in the last place you thought to look. And sometimes what you're looking for finds you instead. The door opened. Jesse stood there with his coat over his arm. Forgot my good hat, he said. Can't work without it. But he wasn't wearing a hat, and there was no hat on the rack by the door. Kate smiled. Of course, your hat. It's on the table. Jesse picked up the hat he'd set there hours ago. Right, thank you. He started to leave, stopped, turned back. Kate, tomorrow, Agnes Whitmore is coming. She's going to want to examine you and the children, document injuries, build a medical record, in case Richard finds us, in case we need evidence that he's not fit to have custody. Kate nodded. All right, we'll be ready. Jesse hesitated, then spoke the words that had been sitting in his throat all day. I'm not going to let him take them. You understand that when he comes, and he will come, I'm not going to step aside and let him take those children. You could die for that. Richard doesn't fight fair. Neither do I. He put on his hat and walked out into the dark. Kate stood at the window and watched the light in the barn come back on. She thought about men who kept their promises, men who held broken children gently, men who gave up their own beds and slept in barns because it was the right thing to do. And she thought about the man she'd married, the man who wore expensive suits and quoted law and broke his daughter's arm for spilling ink. The difference between them was not money or education or social standing. The difference was that one man measured his worth by what he could take, and the other measured his by what he could give. Kate bolted the door from the inside. Her choice, her control. Then she climbed the ladder to the loft and lay down between her sleeping children. For the first time in 10 years, she closed her eyes without listening for footsteps on the stairs. The next morning, Agnes Whitmore arrived on a gray mare that looked as old and stubborn as she was. She dismounted with the stiff movements of someone whose joints had stopped cooperating years ago, but whose will had not. Kate met her at the door. Agnes looked her up and down with the clinical detachment of a physician who had seen too much to be shocked by anything. "You look like your mother, Margaret Sullivan. I treated her in Boston 30 years ago." Kate's throat tightened. "You remember her?" "I remember every woman who came to my clinic with bruises she claimed came from falling downstairs. Your mother came 6 times. I documented what I saw. It didn't save her, but maybe it can save you." Agnes walked into the house without waiting for an invitation. She examined Kate's hand first, unwrapped Jesse's bandage, studied the stitches, made a sound in her throat that was almost approval. "Jesse did this, yes. Better than I expected," he learned from his father. "Ezra Thornton could stitch a wound tighter than a Boston surgeon." She cleaned the wound, applied a salve that smelled like pine and something bitter, and rewrapped it with proper gauze. "You'll keep the hand. The fingers will work. The scar will remind you that you survived." "I don't need a scar to remember that." Agnes pulled out a leather journal and began writing. "I'm going to document everything. Every injury I can see. Every scar. Every mark that tells the story your husband tried to hide. He's not my husband. Not anymore. The law says otherwise. But we're going to change what the law says." Agnes called for the children. Abby came down first, wary, protective. Rose followed, chattering about the goats. Tommy stayed in the loft until Boone went up and gently nudged him toward the ladder. Agnes examined Abby's arm. The girl sat perfectly still, while Agnes felt the bone testing the way it had healed. This was a spiral fracture. You don't get that from a fall. You get that from someone grabbing your arm and twisting. Abby looked at her mother. "It's all right, sweetheart. Tell her the truth." "My father did it. I spilled ink on his papers. He grabbed me and twisted until I heard something crack." Agnes wrote in her journal. Her face showed nothing, but her hand pressed hard enough that the pencil left deep grooves in the paper. She examined Rose next. No visible injuries, but Agnes asked questions, gentle ones, about nightmares, about fears, about whether Rose felt safe. The girl answered honestly. Too honestly. The kind of honesty that comes from a child who has never learned to lie because the truth was always used against her anyway. When Agnes called for Tommy, the boy would not come down. He clung to Boone and hid his face. Agnes did not push. She climbed the ladder and sat on the floor of the loft, keeping distance between herself and the frightened child. "Hello, Tommy. My name is Agnes. I'm a friend of your grandmother's." Tommy did not respond. "I'm going to be around for a while, so there's no rush. Whenever you're ready." Boone walked over and sat beside Agnes. His tail wagged once, slow, deliberate, a recommendation. Tommy peeked, one brown eye looking at Boone sitting next to this stranger. The dog's tail wagged again. Tommy looked at Agnes. He did not speak, but he did not hide his face again either. Agnes counted that as progress and climbed back down. She pulled Kate aside. "That boy has been hurt in ways that don't leave marks you can see. He'll need time, patience, a world that doesn't grab at him." "I know. The girl Abby, she's carrying weight no child should carry. She's been the mother when you couldn't be. That's going to take years to undo." "I know that too." Agnes gripped her arm. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because you need to hear someone else say it. You didn't fail these children. The man who hurt them did, and the system that gave him the power to do it." Kate's eyes burned. "Can you help us legally? I can document everything I've seen. I can write a medical affidavit that describes these injuries in terms no judge can ignore, and I can testify if it comes to a hearing. Will that be enough?" "I don't know. The law favors fathers, especially fathers with money and connections. But truth has a way of breaking through eventually. We just have to make sure the truth is loud enough." Agnes packed her bag and pulled on her coat. "I'll be back tomorrow. Keep that hand clean. Make sure the children eat. And Kate, yes, thank you for running. Some women never do. They stay and they die, and their children grow up thinking that's what love looks like. You broke that cycle. Don't ever forget that. The days settled into a rhythm. Jesse worked the ranch, Kate cooked and cleaned, and slowly learned that not all men expected payment for kindness. Abby helped with everything. Too much, like she was trying to earn the right to stay. Rose talked to anyone who would listen. The goats, Boone, Jesse when he came in for meals. She had 2 years of silence stored up, and it all came pouring out. And Tommy. Tommy watched. On the third day, he followed Jesse to the barn. Jesse was mending a harness sitting on a hay bale with leather and tools spread around him. He saw the boy in the doorway but did not acknowledge him. 10 minutes passed. Tommy took one step inside, then another. He sat down on a hay bale 6 feet from Jesse and pulled his knees to his chest. Jesse reached into the box beside him and pulled out a piece of scrap leather and a blunt needle. He set them on the hay bale next to Tommy without a word and went back to his work. Tommy looked at the leather, looked at the needle, picked them up. His small hands tried to push the needle through the way he had watched Jesse do it. It took him 4 tries. On the 5th, the needle went through. Tommy pulled the thread and looked up at Jesse with an expression that was not quite a smile but was closer than Kate had seen in weeks. Jesse nodded once. Good, now do it again. Kate watched from the barn door. She pressed her hand over her mouth and turned away before either of them could see her cry. That evening, she sat on the porch with Jesse, 3 feet apart, the distance he always kept. Thank you, she said, for Tommy, for all of it. He's a good kid, smart, just needs time. You're good with him, with all of them. Jesse looked out at the mountains. The sun was setting, turning the snow orange and pink. I never had children. Never thought I would. After Daniel died and then Matra, I figured that part of life wasn't meant for me. You'd be a good father. Maybe, or maybe I'd just be a man who knows what it's like to hold someone small and have them die in your arms, and who would do anything to make sure that never happens again. Kate reached over, not touching, just close. Jesse, what happens when Richard comes? We stand together, all of us. That's not a plan. It's the only plan I've got, but it's worked before. When? Shiloh, 1862, the line broke. Men were running, officers were dead. In my unit, what was left of it, we decided we'd had enough running. So we stood, 11 men, against a Confederate regiment. We held for 40 minutes, long enough for the main force to regroup. How many of you survived? 3. Kate's hand found his, their fingers intertwined. Those aren't good odds. No, but they're better than running. They sat in silence as the stars came out. Boone lay across their feet, connecting them with the warm weight of his body. Inside, the children slept. Safe, warm, fed. And somewhere to the east on a train that was already moving west, a man with polished shoes and a leather briefcase full of papers, signed by a judge, sat in a first-class car and planned exactly how he would take back what the law said belonged to him. He did not know about the ranch, or the dog, or the quiet man who slept in a barn because he had given his house to people who needed it more. He did not know that the valley he was heading toward was not empty, that it was full of people who had come west for the same reason his wife had. Running from something, looking for something better. He did not know that he was riding toward a reckoning, but he would learn. They all would. On the afternoon of the 4th day, Jesse rode into town for supplies. He said he'd be back before dark, but there was something in the way he checked his rifle before he left that told Kate this was not just about flour and coffee. She stood on the porch and watched him ride south until he was a dark speck against the white horizon. Then she went inside and checked the Winchester. Full magazine. She set it by the door where she could reach it fast. Abby was at the table, teaching Rose and Tommy to play cards with a deck Jesse had found in a drawer. The children's laughter filled the house like something precious and fragile. Kate kneaded bread dough and tried not to think about how easily all of this could be taken away. Jesse came back 3 hours later. He dismounted in the yard and walked to the barn first. When he finally came to the house, he was carrying a brown paper package. Rose, he said. The girl looked up from her cards. This is for you. Rose took the package. She opened it slowly like she was afraid it might disappear. Inside was a rag doll, yellow yarn hair, blue calico dress, slightly lopsided, clearly handmade by someone who cared more about getting it finished than making it perfect. Rose stared at it. Her hands trembled. "Her name can be Elizabeth," Jessie said, "if you want." Rose looked at the doll, looked at Jessie, her eyes filled with tears. "My Elizabeth is still in Boston, in my room, all alone." "I know, but maybe this Elizabeth can keep you company until you can go back for the other one someday." "We're never going back," Rose whispered. Jesse knelt down. His knees cracked. He looked the 7-year-old in the eye. "You're right. You're probably not going back. But that doesn't mean you can't remember. And it doesn't mean you can't have something here that reminds you of what you loved before." Rose clutched the doll to her chest. She did not say thank you. She just held on. Kate turned away and pressed her fist against her mouth. The bread dough blurred in front of her eyes. That evening, Jesse sat on the porch cleaning his rifle. Kate came out with 2 cups of coffee and sat down beside him. "Not 3 feet away this time. Closer." "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Do what the doll. Mrs. Morrison at the store had it ready. Took her 20 minutes to sew it together." "You asked her to make it." "Rose talks to Boone about Elizabeth every day. Seemed like something she needed." Kate set down her coffee and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who slept in a barn and bought dolls for children who were not his and sat on his own porch cleaning weapons to protect people he'd known for 4 days. "Why are you doing this, Jesse? The truth. Not the story about Sarah. Not the guilt about your brother." Why, Jesse was quiet for a long time. The stars were coming out. Boone lay between them, his chin on Kate's boot. "When I was 8, Jesse said finally, my mother got real sick. Pneumonia. My father sent me and Daniel to stay with our aunt in town while he nursed her. We were there 3 weeks. Every day, Daniel would ask me if Mama was going to die. And every day I told him no. Because I was older. Because I was supposed to know." He paused, cleaned the rifle mechanism with slow, deliberate movements. "She died on a Tuesday. My father came to get us Wednesday morning. Daniel looked at me like I'd lied to him, like I'd betrayed him. And I had. Not on purpose, but I'd promised him something I couldn't deliver. You were 8 years old. Doesn't matter, I learned something that day. Words are easy. Promises are easy. Standing up when it costs you something that's hard. And most people don't do it." He looked at her. "I've spent my whole life watching people make promises they don't keep. I watched officers at Shiloh promise reinforcements that never came. I watched a telegram promise me a wife who died before I could meet her. I watched this valley promise mail-order brides to women who got swindled by ghosts. So you decided to be different. I decided to be the person who shows up. That's all. Not because I'm good, not because I'm noble, but because when I was 80 years old, I watched my father show up every single day to nurse a woman who was dying. And when she died, he kept showing up. For me and Daniel, he didn't make promises. He just showed up. Every damn day until the war took him, too." Kate's throat closed. She put her coffee down and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Your father would be proud of you. My father would tell me I'm a fool for getting involved in something that could get me killed. But he'd understand why I'm doing it anyway." The door opened. Abby stood there in her nightgown. Her hair was loose. She looked younger like this, more like the 11-year-old she was supposed to be. "Mama, Tommy's asking for you." Kate stood. Jessie stood with her. "I'll be in a minute," Kate said. Abby went back inside. Kate turned to Jessie. They were standing close now, closer than they'd ever been except for the moment in the cabin when he'd stitched her hand. "Jessie, yeah, if this goes wrong, if Richard takes them and there's nothing we can do, promise me you won't blame yourself." "I can't promise that." "Then promise me you'll keep showing up for someone else, somewhere else, because there are people who need what you do, the showing up part." Jesse reached out. His hand touched her cheek. Just a graze, just enough to wipe away a tear she hadn't known was falling. "I promise." She leaned into his hand for just a second, just long enough to feel what it was like to be touched by someone who didn't want to hurt her. Then she went inside. Jesse stood on the porch alone. Boone came and sat beside him. The dog looked up at him with those mismatched eyes, one brown, one blue. I know, Jesse said. I'm in trouble. Boone's tail thumped once. Thought so. The next morning, Jesse saddled Bonnie before dawn. He told Kate he was going to check the fence line. He did not tell her he was actually riding to every ranch within 10 miles to talk about a lawyer from Boston who was coming to steal children from their mother. He came back at dusk. Kate was on the porch with the Winchester across her knees. She stood when she saw him. Everything all right? Fine, fence is holding. She knew he was lying. She let him lie. Inside, the children were asleep. Jesse built up the fire. Kate made coffee. They sat at the table without speaking, just existing in the same space, and that was enough. On the fifth day, Boone stood up from his spot by the fire and went rigid. Every muscle in the dog's body locked. His ears flattened. A growl started low in his chest, building like thunder. Kate's hands stopped in the flour. She looked at the dog. Abby, take Tommy and Rose to the back room. Now. Abby grabbed her siblings and moved without asking why. She had learned that tone years ago. Kate took the Winchester from above the fireplace and went to the window. A rider was coming up the road from the south. Tall, thin, long duster coat, moving slow like he had all the time in the world. Boone's growl deepened. Kate positioned herself beside the door out of the sight line the way Jesse had shown her by example. The rider stopped in the yard. He did not dismount. He sat in the saddle and looked at the house, the barn, the road behind him, reading everything. Mrs. Aldridge, he called out. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. My name is Silas Crane. I've been hired by your husband to locate you and your children. Kate's finger found the trigger. I'm not armed, Mrs. Aldridge. I'm a detective, not a gunfighter. I've been tracking you since Chicago. I found you. There's nothing to talk about. I think there is. I have papers from a Massachusetts court. Custody order. Your husband has legal right to those children. My husband has no rights at all. The law disagrees, ma'am. Crane shifted in his saddle. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you I found you. Mr. Aldridge will know your location within the week. What happens after that is between you and him and whatever lawman runs this territory. Then you've delivered your message. Leave. One more thing. Kate waited. Boone was at the door now, his body between her and the threshold. I've been doing this work 12 years, Crane said. Most times the story's simple. Someone owes someone something. They ran, but sometimes I find someone and what I see doesn't match what I was told. He paused. I was told you were unstable, dangerous, but I've been watching this ranch 2 days. Your children run to you, not from you. That boy won't let go of the dog because it's the first thing he's trusted in longer than a 5-year-old should know about. Kate's grip shifted. I'm riding to town now, sending a telegram to Mr. Aldridge. That's my job. But I want you to know I'm not helping him take those children. Finding is my job. Taking isn't. He turned his horse. At the edge of the yard, he stopped. The boy in Omaha who saw you practice shooting said you pull left on every third shot. Might want to fix that. He rode away. Kate stood at the window watching him go. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the effort of not pulling the trigger on a man who just told her Richard was coming. 15 minutes later, Jesse came up the road at a gallop. He'd seen Crane riding toward town. He came through the door, breathing hard, hand on his holster. Kate, I'm fine. Children are safe. I saw the rider. Silas Crane. He found me. He's sending a telegram to Richard today. Jesse's jaw locked. Did he threaten you? No, he told me my shooting pole's left, and that he won't help Richard take the children. Hey, you believe him? I believe he does his job and doesn't ask questions, but he saw Tommy with Boone. Something in his face changed. That doesn't mean he won't give Richard everything he needs to come here legally. I know. Jesse pulled off his hat and ran his hand through his hair. How long? A week, maybe less. Telegram today. Boston to Cheyenne by rail 4 days. Cheyenne to here 2 more. 6 days. Kate nodded. Jesse sat down at the table, put his hands flat on the wood. All right, I talked to Will Davenport. Tell him what's coming. Then Agnes. Then I ride to every rancher in 10 miles. Jesse, this isn't their fight. The hell it isn't. Man coming here to drag a woman and 3 children back to where he breaks arms and locks kids in cellars. That's everybody's fight. He stood and went to the door. Lock this behind me. He rode to Elk Hollow hard, went to the sheriff's office first. Will Davenport was at his desk cleaning his pistol with the devotion of ritual. He looked up when Jesse came in. Trouble. There's a man coming, Richard Aldridge, Boston lawyer. Got a custody order for 3 children at my ranch. Their mother brought them here because he beat them. Will set down the pistol. Agnes mentioned this. Aldridge has court papers. Massachusetts custody order. Legal. Massachusetts or territorial. Massachusetts. Might not hold here, but if a federal marshal enforces it, it holds. Will pulled out a ledger. Tell me about the children. Jesse told him everything. Abby's arm, Tommy in the cellar, Rose in the twisted love Richard used as a weapon. Will listened. When Jesse finished, the sheriff was quiet for a long time. I can't refuse a legitimate court order. If Aldridge shows up with papers and a federal marshal, I'm bound to cooperate. But I can delay, demand verification, require review by a territorial judge. That buys time. How much days? Maybe a week. Agnes is documenting the abuse. Good, medical testimony carries weight. I'll need to see the children myself, official record. My testimony, they're scared of him, not her. Went tomorrow morning. Jesse nodded and left. He went to Agnes next. She was stitching a miner's head. When she saw Jesse's face, she sent the miner away and shut the door. Crane found her. Agnes sat down hard. How long? 6 days. Not enough. I need 2 weeks to build a proper case. There's no time. Then I work with what I have. She pulled out her journal. There's something else. I wrote Dr. Thomas Marsh in Boston 3 days ago. He treated Abby's arm. He knew it wasn't from a fall. He said nothing because he was afraid. Will he talk now? Thomas Marsh carries guilt. I told him the child he failed is living in Wyoming because her mother had to steal her own children to keep them alive. I asked for a sworn statement. If he sends it, combined with my records, it creates a pattern no honest judge can ignore. And if he doesn't, we fight with what we have. Jesse went to Hank Morrison last, told him the story. Plain, true. Hank listened with his hands still and his mouth shut. What do you need? People willing to stand when the time comes. Not to fight, just to be present. You're asking me to go against a court order. I'm asking you to stand in the street and be counted. Hank reached under the counter, pulled out a shotgun. My Martha had a sister in Philadelphia. Husband beat her every Saturday. She died in that house. Coroner said she fell downstairs. He set the shotgun on the counter. Nobody in this valley falls downstairs. Tell me when. Jesse rode to every ranch within 10 miles, told the same story each time. Each time the answer was the same. A nod, a rifle from the wall, a promise to show up. Frank Dawson. I've got 3 sons. We'll be there. Miller Brothers named the day. Pete Garza stood on his porch and listened and said something in Spanish that ended with familia. By nightfall, Jesse had 14 men and 6 women committed. Not to fight, to stand, to show a Boston lawyer this valley wasn't empty. He rode home in the dark. Kate was on the porch with the Winchester and Boone. Well, Jesse dismounted. Will's coming tomorrow. Agnes is building a case. Hank's spreading word. Every rancher between here and the ridge will be in Elk Hollow when Aldridge arrives. Kate was quiet. You did all that in one afternoon. I ride fast. These people don't know me. They're not doing it because they owe you. They're doing it because a man beating children and hunting his wife 1,000 miles is wrong. People here still know the difference. Kate turned her face away. Jesse heard her breathing change. The last person who helped me was a widow in Omaha, she said. She taught me to shoot, gave me meals and $5. When I left, she said, don't thank me, just keep those babies alive. I cried for 10 miles. Sounds like a good woman. She was the only person in 6 weeks who treated me human. Jesse took the rifle from her lap, not grabbing, asking with his hands. He leaned it against the wall. Then he put his hand on the railing between them. Palm up, open. Kate looked at his hand, looked at his face. You're getting closer than 3 feet. I am. I didn't say you could. I know. That's why I'm on the railing, not on you. She stared at him. This impossible man, this patient, stubborn man who slept in barns and rode all day asking strangers to help people they'd never met. She put her hand in his. His fingers closed. Warm, steady. He didn't squeeze, didn't pull, just held on and let her choose how tight. She chose tight. Boone lifted his head, looked at their joined hands. Tail thumped once. He laid his chin on Kate's boot and closed his eyes. 6 days, Kate said. 6 days. He'll bring lawyers, papers, maybe a marshal. And I'll have 14 ranchers, a doctor, a sheriff, and a dog who bites people. Kate almost laughed. Jesse, if this goes wrong, if he takes them, I need you to promise something. Name it. Don't let me disappear. Don't let him erase me like he did Catherine Marsh. Jesse turned to face her, starlight in her eyes. Kate Brennan, I am not letting that man take your children. Not letting him erase you, not letting you disappear. Because my dog chose you and he's never been wrong. She laughed, broken, half sob. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder. Jesse put his arm around her, careful, light, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't pull away. She leaned in and let him hold the weight she'd been carrying alone. We're going to win this, he said. You don't know that. Boone does. Always been good enough for me. The dog's tail thumped. The next morning, Will Davenport came with his badge and notebook. He interviewed Abby first. She sat with hands folded and answered at every question steady. How did you break your arm? My father broke it. I spilled ink. He grabbed and twisted until it snapped. What happened then? He told me to stop crying, said if I'd told the doctor truth, he'd lock Tommy in the cellar again, and it'd be my fault. So I lied. Will wrote it all. He interviewed Rose next. She talked too much, too honest. About nights father held her while Tommy stood in corners. About desserts when Abby was punished. About learning to be good so maybe he'd stop hurting others. Will's hand cramped writing. When he called Tommy, the boy wouldn't come. Clung to Boone, hid his face. Will didn't push. Knelt at Tommy's level. Tommy, I'm Will. Sheriff, I help scared people. You don't have to talk, but if you want to, I'm here. No response. Will stood, looked at Kate. How long's he been like this? Since the cellar, 4 months. Does he speak at all? To the dog only. Will made a note. Selective mutism following trauma, that's documentation. He closed his notebook. Mrs. Brennan, I'm writing a report. 3 children showing signs of prolonged abuse. Their behavior toward you is seeking comfort, not fear. I'll recommend any custody order be reviewed by territorial judge before enforcement. Will that stop Richard? It'll slow him. Right now slows what we've got. He walked to the door, stopped, turned. When Aldridge comes, stay calm. Don't run, don't fight, let the law work. Moment you fight, you give him ammunition. And if law doesn't work, Will looked at Jesse, back at Kate. We'll deal with that, but we do it right, legal or not at all. The hours crawled. Kate cooked, cleaned, tried staying busy. Every sound made her jump. Abby noticed. Mama, what happens when he comes? Kate was kneading bread. I don't know, baby. Will they make us go back? Not if I can help it. But the law says many things. Not all are right. Quiet. I won't go back, Mama. If they try, I'll run. Take Tommy and Rose. Run so far, they never find us. Kate stopped, turned. You'll do no such thing. You're 11. You're not running anywhere. I won't let him take Tommy again. Neither will I, but running isn't the answer. Then what is standing, fighting, making noise people have to hear? Abby looked at the barn. Is that why Jesse's helping? Because we're making noise. Jesse's helping because he's good, knows right from wrong, and sometimes when lucky you find people who stand with you when law won't. On day 6, Silas Crane rode back. A lone afternoon. Kate saw him, blood cold, but she didn't hide. Walked onto porch with Winchester. Waited. Crane stopped at yard's edge. Mrs. Aldridge, warning. About what? Your husband didn't wait. Private rail car. Paid premium. He's in Cheyenne now. Elk Hollow tonight. Kate's vision tunneled. Tonight, Federal Marshal Colton Pierce with him, and papers. Pierce won't enforce without review. Pierce goes by book, he'll review. When he sees legitimate Massachusetts order, he'll enforce. Your sheriff can delay. Pierce outranks him. Why tell me? Crane leaned forward. 12 years ago, tracked a runaway wife, found her Montana, brought her back. She killed herself 3 months later. Straighten. Don't do that anymore. Find people. Don't destroy them. Your husband hired me to locate. I did. Job done. What I do next is my choice. And you're choosing to testify. If this goes to hearing, I'll testify what I saw. Children clinging to you. Boy who won't speak. Your husband kicking dog protecting a child. Kate's throat closed. Why chow? Boy in Omaha told me about your shooting. Also told me you held your children while practicing. Cried between shots because hands shook. Said he'd never seen someone so scared and brave. Same time. Crane gathered reins. Good luck, Mrs. Aldridge. You'll need it. He rode away. Kate stood, turned, ran to barn. Jesse, he looked up. Richard's coming, tonight. Didn't wait. Cheyenne now with federal marshal. Jesse stood. Hours, not days. What do we do? Prepare, stand. He walked past a house. Coat, rifle loaded, pistol checked. Riding every ranch, telling them tonight, come at dawn. Jesse, no time. Enough time, barely, but enough. Mounted, look down. Lock doors, keep children inside. Open only for me or Will. Understand? Yes. Kate. What? This isn't over, just starting. When it starts, stay strong, for them. Rode out, Kate went back. Locked door, checked Winchester. Gathered children. Listen, all of you, your father's coming, tomorrow. Maybe sooner. We're not running, not hiding. Standing here, fighting to stay together. Abby went white. Rose cried. Tommy pressed to Boone, silent. I need you brave, braver than ever. Can you? Abby nodded. Rose nodded through tears. Tommy held dog. That night, Kate didn't sleep. Sat by window, rifle, watched road. Jesse returned midnight, had ridden every ranch. Same message. Dawn, come at dawn. Everyone. Didn't sleep either. Sat barn, rifle, thoughts. Terrible knowledge tomorrow changed everything. In Elk Hollow, Richard Aldridge sat Clarabelle's boarding house. Briefcase, polished shoes, federal marshal, Marshal Colton Pierce, large, thick mustache, impassive. Enforced law without editorializing. Sat across reviewing papers by lamp. Appear in order, Pierce said. Custody to father, mother unfit, warrant for arrest, kidnapping. Proceed tomorrow. Need verify with local sheriff, courtesy, assuming no legal grounds object yes, proceed tomorrow. Richard smiled, not kind. Good, been chasing my wife half the country. Time bring her home. Pierce looked at him. Mr. Aldridge, this isn't about you, about 3 children. What's best for them? I enforce law, nothing more. Less. Of course, children, that's all I want. Back where they belong. Pierce folded papers. Into case. Leave first light, speak Sheriff Davenport, then proceed Thornton Ranch. If woman resists, arrest for obstruction. Take children protective custody until transport arranged. Richard stood, walked window, looked dark street, this pathetic town, smiled. Tomorrow. Property back. Children. Wife. Everything belonging to him. Tomorrow, Kate Brennan would learn what happened women who defied Richard Aldridge. Went to bed, slept like man who believed already won. 3 miles away, Kate sat window. Whispered prayers didn't believe in. To God no longer sure listened. In barn, Jesse checked rifle one more time. Thought brother Daniel bleeding Shiloh. Sarah freezing wagon. All people couldn't save. Not this time. Not these children. Boone lifted head in house, looked toward road. Ears pricked, body tensed. Something coming. The sun wasn't up yet when Boone started growling. Deep, continuous. The sound of a guy who knows violence is coming and is deciding whether to meet it or warn against it. Kate was already awake. She hadn't slept. She went to the window. 4 riders, coming fast from the south. Pre-dawn dark, moving with purpose. Abby, get Tommy and Rose. Root cellar. Now. Mama. Now. Abby grabs siblings, down ladder, into cellar under kitchen. Door shut. Kate took Winchester. Checked load. Positioned by door. Boone was rigid, every muscle locked. The riders pulled up in yard, didn't dismount, sat saddles, then fifth figure, on foot, from tree line. Richard. Even in dim light she knew him, the way he stood, the tilt of his head, the ownership in his posture. Lid rider called out, Mrs. Aldridge, Mr. Aldridge has ordered retrieval of his children. We have legal authority. Kate's finger found Trauger. You have nothing. Sheriff issued delay. Papers under review. We don't need sheriff's permission for private property recovery. Second rider moved toward barn. Kate swung rifle. Next man moves, gets a warning, won't walk away from. And then Richard stepped into yard. Kate. Not Eleanor. Kate. He knew. It's done. I've got Marshall Pierce. Legal papers. You can make this easy or hard, but those children are mine. They were never yours. Law says different. Law hasn't seen what you did to them. Law will believe a respected attorney over a woman who stole children and ran across the country with a fake name. Kate's blood ran ice, but her hand stayed steady. Leave now, or I'll show you exactly what desperate looks like. Richard smiled, that smile, the one that meant he'd already won and was just enjoying watching her realize it. You won't shoot? You didn't last time. Doubt you'll start now. He took one step forward, and Boone exploded. The dog cleared the porch in one leap, went straight for Richard. Not the riders. Richard caught his coat sleeve, held, pinned him. Richard's face twisted. He kicked. Boot caught Boone's ribs. Dog yelped, fell. Kate screamed, and then a rifle shot split the morning. Jesse on the ridge behind barn. Winchester raised. Warning shot to Skate. Next one won't miss. Get away from her. Richard turned. Thornton, this doesn't concern you. Try again. And then, behind Jesse, one by one, 14 men crested the ridge. Frank Dawson and 3 sons, Miller brothers, Pete Garza, Hank Morrison with shotgun. Others, armed, silent, standing frozen in pre-dawn dark. Because Kate Brennan was trouble, and that was enough. The hired riders looked at each other, looked at the ridge, looked at Richard. First rider turned horse, rode out, second followed, third hesitated, left, fourth stayed, older, harder, hand on sidearm. Then another figure stepped from tree line. Silas Crane. It's done, Aldrich. You work for me. Worked, past tense, contract's complete. I found her. You paid for that, nothing else. I'll destroy you. Try, fail, because I track 12 years. Know every skeleton buried, including yours. Crane dropped a folder at Richard's feet. Catherine Marsh, remember woman you put asylum because she wouldn't marry you. Richard went white. I'm detective. Find things my job. Found Marsh records 3 days ago. Made me wonder what kind of man sends 4 armed men to steal children from mother middle of night. Pulled telegram from pocket. Arthur Pennington, Marsh's lawyer. Still practices. Been waiting 20 years for someone to reopen case. I telegraphed yesterday. You had no right. Every right. You hired me, find truth. Didn't expect me, find yours. Crane mounted. One more thing, Mrs. Brennan. Kate looked. You pull left every third shot. Remember. Rode out, Richard stood alone. No riders, no Crane, no Marshall yet. Line of armed ranchers on ridge. Dog limping between him and porch. Kate came down steps, set Winchester on rail, walked to yard, stopped 6 feet from Richard. Go home. You think this is over? You're standing in mud at 5 a.m. with nobody left. Hired men gone. A detective turned. Marshall waking up 2 hours from now to find you tried midnight raid violated the delay he agreed to. Everyone on that ridge witnessed it. Step closer. You lost. Because Catherine Marsh files are open. Dr. Marsh will testify. Agnes has 12 pages medical records. Every person this valley saw what you are today. Another step. You spent 20 years controlling women with paper and fear. Thought you'd do it again. But paper only works when people agree to believe it. Fear only works when the person you're scaring is alone. Gestured to Ridge. I'm not alone, Richard. Not anymore. Not because of Jesse. Not because of town. Because I finally understand what took 10 years to learn. I don't need anyone to save me. Just people willing to stand beside me while I save myself. And I found them. Richard's face worked. Rage. Calculation. First moment understanding he'd truly lost. They're my children, he said, hollow. No force. They're my children. They'll never be afraid of you again. Boone limped forward, stood beside Kate, calm, certain, immovable. Richard turned, walked down Ranch Road, alone, polished boots in mud. Nobody followed, nobody needed to. Kate sat in snow, Boone in lap, shaking. He's gone, into Boone's neck, Jesse knelt. He's gone. He kicked Boone. I saw. Boone's okay, ribs bruised maybe, Agnes will check. He kicked Mido, voice cracked on my. That word, my, held everything. Jesse, I'm here. Get my children. Root cellar. Jesse knocked 3 times, said name. Abby opened hatch, knife in hand, eyes wild. Saw empty yard, men on ridge, mother in snow with dog. Mama ran, rose after. Tommy slow holding cloth Elizabeth. Kate caught all 3. In snow, arms around. Abby pressed face to Kate's shoulder. Rose into chest. Tommy between sisters found Boone held fur and mother's coat. Jesse stepped back. Frank Dawson beside. Hank. Pete. All watching mother hold children, saying nothing. Because nothing needed saying. Hank Blue Nose. Damn cold morning. Makes my eyes water. Frank. Sure, Hank, it's the cold. Men dispersed, quiet, satisfied. Hank to Jesse. You did good, Thornton. Jesse, wasn't me, was her. Hank, maybe, but you were here, that matters. Hour later, Marshal Pierce arrived, saw tracks in snow, heard story from Will, Pierce to Richard at boarding house. Mr. Aldridge, you violated delay, attempted midnight retrieval without law present. Contempt. Territorial hearing scheduled 2 weeks. Until then, stay Elk Hollow. Don't approach Thornton Ranch. Richard Mass cracking. Those children? Enough. Read Sheriff Davenport's report. Dr. Whitmore's affidavit. Heard about Catherine Marsh. You're lucky I don't arrest you now. Kate watching distance. Jesse beside. Richard being handled by Marshall. Powerless. Defeated. Kate turned to Jesse. Hand found his. Is it over, Jesse? Not entirely. Still hearing. But hard part. Yes, over. 3 weeks later, Cheyenne Territorial Courthouse. Judge Robert Clearwater presiding. Present, Kate Richard and lawyer Marshall Pierce. Will Agnes Crane, Jesse Children waiting room with Mrs. Morrison. Testimony day. Kate testified 4 hours compressed in narrative. Did not cry. Did not waver. Truth. Night I left my son was coal cellar 4 hours. He was 3. When I pulled him out, he screamed an hour, then went silent. Didn't speak 2 months. Richard's lawyer cross, Mrs. Aldridge, you stole children middle of night, ran across country, lied about identity, became mail-order bride under false name. Kate, I didn't commit bigamy. Daniel Cooper didn't exist, no marriage. Lawyer, you intended bigamy. Intended marry while still legally married to my client. Kate, I intended survive. Intended get my children away from man breaking them piece by piece. Dr. Agnes 12-page affidavit. Every injury. Abby Brennan's arm, healed fracture spiral pattern. Not from fall, from adult hand-grabbing child's arm, twisting with rotational force. Dr. Thomas Marsh deposition read aloud. I treated Abby Aldridge's broken radius, September 1876. Patient said fell downstairs. When examined, I observed 1. Spiral fracture inconsistent with fall 2. Bruising on arm in pattern of adult fingerprints 3. Child showed fear when father entered room. Didn't report because feared professional retaliation from Mr. Aldridge. Willing to repeat under oath. Sheriff Will I observed children Thornton Ranch 2 hours, conducted interviews. Oldest heightened vigilance protective of siblings, demonstrated knowledge using weapons for self-defense. This not normal behavior 11-year-old. Youngest selective mutism. Won't speak to adults except through dog. Extreme attachment to animals suggests animal represents safety adults didn't provide. Silas Crane. I was hired by Mr. Aldridge to locate wife and children. Track Boston to Elk Hollow. When located, I observed Mrs. Brennan living in rancher's home with 3 children. Children appeared fed, clothed, cared for adequately. Youngest displayed selective mutism, only interacted with dog. Morning date, I observed Mr. Aldridge and 4 hired men conduct pre-dawn raid on ranch where Mrs. Brennan and children were staying. I observed Mr. Aldridge kick dog attempting to protect children. I observed 14 armed citizens arrive to stand between Mr. Aldridge and children. Catherine Marsh file. Arthur Pennington presented 1871 Miss Catherine Marsh refused marriage proposal from Richard Aldridge. 3 months later, committed to asylum based on papers signed by 2 doctors claiming she was hysterical, danger to herself. I represented Miss Marsh. After 2-year legal battle, we proved commitment papers fraudulent. Doctors paid by Mr. Aldridge. This is pattern. When Richard Aldridge can't control women through legal means, he uses illegal ones. Verdict. Judge Clearwater deliberated 30 minutes. Returned, I've reviewed all testimony, all evidence, all medical records. Mr. Aldridge's custody order from Massachusetts is revoked. Full custody of Abigail Rose Thomas Brennan granted to Mother Kate Brennan. Restraining order issued. Mr. Aldridge prohibited from contacting Mrs. Brennan or children. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation, judicial fraud, witness, intimidation, conspiracy related to Catherine Marsh commitment. Marshal Pierce placed Mr. Aldridge under arrest. Richard's mask shattered. Rage. Lunged at Kate. You bitch, Marshal and deputies restrained. Richard screaming as dragged. They're my children, mine. You can't. Door closed. Silence. Kate collapsed into Jesse's arms. 1 week later, back at ranch, spring arriving, snow melting, creeks filling, grass green. Kate got telegram. Aldridge arrested, Boston, stop. Federal charges, fraud, intimidation, conspiracy, stop. Marsh files reopened. Stop, you are free. Stop. Pennington, Agnes beside. It's done, Kate. Kate. Catherine Marsh, finally she's heard. Agnes, because of you. Children healing. Abby put knife away gradual. Helped Agnes at clinic. Wanted to be doctor. Rose talked to everyone. Elizabeth doll carried, not clutched. Learning to be child again. Tommy spoke, not all at once. Piece by piece. One afternoon, Tommy in barn with Jesse. Tommy looking up. Jesse, I can't get thread through. Jesse's hands stopped. Breathed. Guided Tommy's fingers. Push harder. Leather fights you. Gotta show it who's boss. Tommy, like Boone shows cattle. Jesse. Exactly. Tommy pushed needle through. Held leather. Smiled. Jesse excused himself. Behind barn. Back against wall. Hat over eyes. Chest heaving. Fist to mouth, no sound. Month progress. Month 1, Kate and Jesse 3 feet apart on porch. Month 2, hands touching over Boone's head. Month 3, Jesse's arm around Kate's shoulders. April evening. Kate. I'm thinking, Jesse, about boy, Kate, about how long you sleep in barn. Jesse looked at her. I sleep barn because you needed, Kate. I needed space. Had 4 months space. Now sit porch every evening, watching you walk 30 yards, sleep alone on hay, when there's perfectly good rocking chair inside nobody uses. Jesse, you want me sleeping in rocking chair? Kate, I want you to stop being noble and start being practical. Kate turned to face him. Jesse Thornton, I've been independent 4 months. Got both, got house, got children. Got dog likes me more than you. Got everything I swore to have for myself. Now I'm choosing free, no gun, no blizzard, no man chasing to ask you inside. Jesse took off loud. Kate, I don't want you feeling, Kate. I feel exactly what I want to feel. Don't you dare tell me what I feel. Jesse, I wasn't, Kate. You were about to say something noble and patient and self-sacrificing. I love that about you. But right now I need you to stop protecting me from myself. Jesse, you haven't asked a question. Kate, fine, will you marry me? Jesse dropped his hat. Boone barked inside. Rose shouted, Mama said something made Jesse drop his hat. Jesse stared. That's not how I pictured this. Kate, how'd you picture it? Jesse, I got a ring. Bought from Hank 3 weeks ago. In my pocket in barn. Was going to take you to creek where I found you. Was going to say something about blizzard. Kate, say yes, Jesse. Jesse looked at her. This fierce, stubborn, unbreakable woman. Yes, God, yes. Kate kissed him. Grabbed shirt. Pulled forward. Kissed, not gentle, not careful, not 3 feet apart. 10 years of fists opening. First warm day after longest winter. Abby in doorway. Looked at mother kissing Jesse. Looked at Rose jumping. Looked at Tommy watching with wonder. Finally, Abby said. Went back inside. June 1877. Whole Valley came. Abby beside Kate, holding wildflowers. Rose beside Jesse, holding Boone's collar. Someone has to. Tommy between holding nothing, needing nothing, face light. Agnes performed, married many people, most of them ministers. Won't let stranger do this when I've been waiting since December. Vows, Agnes, do you, Kate Brennan? Kate, I choose. Not I do. I choose because that's the whole point. Jesse, I choose back. Boone barked. Rose lost grip. Dog ran 3 circles around party, lay across Kate's feet, refused to move. Agnes stepped over him twice. Evening reception. Hank into handkerchief. Known Jesse 15 years. Been alone too long, now he's not. That's all I got to say. Sat down crying. I knew Kate's mother, Margaret, would be proud, not because her daughter found man to save her, because daughter saved herself, then found man brave enough to stand beside her while she did it. Crane, unexpected guest, rode up. Kate froze. Jesse stood. Crane dismounted. Not staying, just came to give you this. Envelope. Inside, money. $200. The $200 you gave Marcus Webb for travel expenses, marrying Daniel Cooper, found in his possessions when they auctioned estate. Thought it belonged to you. Kate stunned. Thank you. Crane, don't thank me, just be happy. That's payment enough. Tipped hat, rode out. 5 years later, 1882, Thornton Ranch. Kate and Jesse, 5 years married. Their children never my or his, always our. Abby, 16, studying medicine with Agnes. First woman Dr. Wyoming would have. Rose, 12, teaching Tommy 10 to read. He talked nonstop, now making up for lost time. Tommy, 10, worked with Jesse in barn, stitched leather better than most adults. And baby Sarah, 18 months, named after Jesse's first mail-order bride. Kate insisted she deserves to be remembered, not as woman who died, but as reason you were standing at that depot ready to open your heart when I needed you most. Story gets told. Elk Hollow, general store. Hank leans on counter. I remember like yesterday. Tells about blizzard, empty gun, 3 children. About rancher slept in barn, doctor fought with papers, sheriff read every document twice. About town standing in cold at dawn because standing for what's right. Someone new asked, what was it really about? Hank quiet then, about a dog. Dog ran into blizzard because he heard something rest of us couldn't. Found woman and 3 children. Lay down beside them, refused to move. Everything after every bit happened because one stubborn dog decided those people were his. That's how. Final scene, ranch porch, Boone 13, now gray, muzzle slow but bright-eyed. Lies on porch. Sarah, 18 months, toddles over, grabs fur. Boone's tail thumps. Kate in swing with Jesse. Tommy reading to Rose. Abby rides in from clinic. Kate watches family. Thinks about Boston. Richard serving 10 years. Blizzard, empty gun. Stranger who gave roof, never asked anything except to be allowed to help. Jesse's hand finds hers. You thinking about back then. Kate, sometimes, less now. Regrets. Just one. Wish I'd run sooner. Jesse, you ran exactly when you were ready. Boone thumps tail. Sarah giggles. Kate leans into Jesse. Thank you. For what? For standing beside me, for not trying to save me, for letting me save myself. Jesse, that was all you. Kate. No, it was us, all of us. You, Agnes, Will, Hank, Frank, everyone who stood on that ridge. Boone, especially Boone. Camera pans valley in evening light, mountains gold, sky wide enough to make hearts ache, ranch house with family on porch. Dog lying across threshold, one brown eye, one blue watching. Not because danger's over, because he decided long ago these people were his. Final line, Boone rests chin on paws, closes eyes. Not because story's done, because it never needed an ending, just needed someone who refused to let go. The end.